Hey, I'm Tan Vinh, and this is Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. Seattle is a haven for coffee fans, and that fandom just got a whole lot more expensive. Java tariffs, bean shortages, supply chain crunches. Can we even afford a cup of joe in this new coffee world? Is a $10 latte the new norm? My colleague, Megan Ulu-Lani Boyanton, joins me today to break down the coffee economy, and I'll tell you where the heck you can get a good cheap cup of coffee in this city. Ready? Let's roll! Hey, Seattle Eaters! Megan Ulu-Lani Boyanton is here. She's a business reporter for Seattle Times and my nearby cubby mates. Megan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ton. Thank you so much for having me here.
Megan, you wrote a front page story for the Seattle Times about coffee and coffee prices going up. But I gotta know, how much of coffee do you drink in the morning?
Oh, gosh.
And it better be more than 3, because then I'll feel bad. But go. No pressure.
I'm only up to 2 today, but I swear after we get done with this, I'll go guzzle my 3rd one to make sure I hit my daily quota. But I am a big morning coffee percolator kind of girl. So I'm old school like that. I think I got it from my parents, this habit. And I got this particular machine back in college. And I have just been toting it around with me on every move. So she's an old lady, but she's reliable. And every morning my boyfriend puts it on for me. And that's where my day begins. Thank God for him.
I sling 3 every morning.
Oh my God. Bouncing off the walls.
Yeah, it's the good thing is it curbs my appetite. Let's just put it that way when you drink a lot of coffee. Megan, for like newcomers or someone who doesn't drink coffee, explain to listeners what the coffee scene is like in Seattle.
Sure. I mean, coffee is the center of our universe here.
Really?
If you don't drink coffee, you should probably develop a taste for it because you're in Seattle and that is what we do here. But really, I mean, there are so many great coffee shops to try. There are little holes in the wall. There are big brands. We are the hometown of coffee giant Starbucks.
Really?
Yes.
Never heard of them.
I'm happy to introduce you. But we have a lot of really great homegrown brands here. And it's just the deeper that you get into this culture, the more that you realize that there's so much going on underneath. I ended up speaking with a professor who walked me through the different waves of coffee. I had no idea that those really existed.
I think most people would say we are in the 3rd or maybe 4th wave of the coffee movement. But you can make the case that we could be in the 5th wave. There are a lot of things going on in coffee in Seattle. I mean, you have the rise of households roasting their own beans. You have the rise of roasters barrel aging their beans. You have the rise of omakase coffee or flights of coffee like wines and beer. And you also have Vietnamese cafes redefining the Western definition of a coffee house. Yeah, there's just so many things going on here in Seattle. But things are still evolving and changing, especially the prices. Tell me about that.
People in Seattle, they're very serious about their coffee. And lately, they've been pretty upset with the prices. Prices are skyrocketing, it seems, and consumers are starting to notice that it's costing them a little bit more to get their morning cup of joe on the way to work. I ended up doing this story for the Seattle Times that really looked at how coffee prices are on the rise here. And it turns out, though, that this is not, a simple answer as to why. There are so many different factors that have gone into it.
Paint us a picture of these different factors. I mean, what are the coffee biz folks dealing with today?
So let me set the scene as to what coffee purveyors are dealing with right now. In the U.S., we have the Trump tariffs that are impacting different coffee-producing countries. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer, and they've been hit with a 50% tariff. So that has coffee purveyors kind of freaking out a little bit, turning to alternative sources. A lot of coffee purveyors are saying that they're dealing with the effects of climate change. So that means like unpredictable weather events that might be impacting their harvests. I don't think that a lot of people realize that farming in general can be super unpredictable. And so sometimes a harvest may not, turn out the way that farmer predicted. It could be lower yields that year. It could be higher yields that year. So that's already the standard that farmers are operating by. And then they have these other factors hitting them as well. And all of that is kind of coming back to the price of our cup of joe here in Seattle.
Megan, your recent story said the coffee prices are spiking. I know the demand is high. So where are we at now? Let's take the mom and pop, the smaller shops. How are they impacted?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, mom and pop shops, it can be tough because they often don't have as much of a safety net as perhaps some of the bigger corporations do. So as a result, they have to, make decisions such as should they pass those costs on to the customers? How much can they absorb? One of the things that works in their favor is that sometimes they have smaller staff. So that means less staffing costs, but they equally have to kind of try and figure out what a feasible game plan looks like moving forward for prices.
What about the big boys? The Starbucks of the world. How are they impacted by these tariffs, environmental changes, and so on?
Yeah, the major players, they're also kind of keeping an eye on the market fluctuations. I will say that they have a little bit more cushion because oftentimes these big corporations source from dozens of countries. They have so many farmers that they can buy from. So they're not necessarily so tied to buying from particular places. They have like more of a range that allows them to not get hit so hard, but they are still impacted at the end of the day. And so I think that sways perhaps which countries they're sourcing from at one time and the strategy that they have at play.
And don't they have more leverage? They're not just buying from Brazil, are they? How does that work for them, the Starbucks of the world?
Totally. They have farmers in so many countries that they can buy from because, yes, most coffee is produced in Brazil, but there are still plenty of places that produce Guatemala, Vietnam, Colombia. And then even here in the U.S., we have a few coffee producing states. So that would be like California, Hawaii, Puerto Rico as a territory. But still, the U.S. doesn't have huge numbers of coffee production. So typically American purveyors have to look outside of our borders in order to buy their raw beans.
So I hear that mom and pops are struggling, but I also think about shops like Cafe Umbria, Cafe Vita. They're pretty popular in the city. They even sell beans at grocery stores. So how are they doing?
I think that right now it appears to be a super shaky time in coffee. So I think that a lot of people are being tested on their business models. Cafe Umbria, I think, is a really good example of someone who kind of falls in the middle. Because I spoke with Starbucks, which is just, a huge international player in the coffee game. And then I spoke with really small folks like the Seattle Grind, which is just like a one-man, well, sometimes with seasonal workers, but usually kind of a one-man show situation. Cafe Umbria is in the middle, where they've got several locations across the country. They've got locations here in Seattle, but they're not so big as Starbucks to where they're able to have as many farmers that they can choose from, as many countries. They're still limited in their buying power. So I think that those companies that kind of fall in the middle, those are the ones that are really kind of being tested right now.
I love reading that front page story about Coffee Spike. I learned so much, Megan, because I'm so naive. My knowledge is so myopic to this because I always thought that coffee was like recession proof. I'll give you a quick example. About 20 years ago, I took a stock tip from a total stranger. It was a barista. This barista was telling me that coffee is recession proof because if you don't drink coffee, you can't function. You get headaches and your whole day is ruined. So just based on those words, I bought shares of Starbucks around $4 20 years ago. I didn't have a lot of money, so I don't know, maybe I bought like 50 shares, 30 shares. And I checked it last year. I now own over 600 shares of Starbucks just based on this one advice. So in my mind, I always thought it was recession proof. So I was shocked to hear the challenges that these coffee houses face.
Yeah, I think that other Americans think that as well because the demand here is just so high. I think for us, it's inconceivable that this wouldn't be a recession-proof sector. But I guess we're finding out that it is totally impacted.
Yeah. So with the current price hike in Seattle, what's going to be the future of lattes or cappuccinos?
I think that a lot of stores are in survival mode right now. Companies they're really just trying to stay the course and not make any sudden movements, if that makes sense. And so I think for now, consumers should probably expect that the $10 coffee is here to stay at this time, but that doesn't mean that there aren't places where you still can't get, a $4 cup of joe.
Well, okay, so let's talk about where people can get cheap coffee. Is it possible to still get cheap coffee? Because, Megan, I cover a lot about restaurants, and people say it's impossible to get food for a good value these days. What about coffee? Is it still possible?
Yes, it's totally still possible. It just takes a little bit of digging. So you may not, walk into a shop and see the cheaper prices, but they are definitely still here in Seattle. I did a lot of research actually looking at Reddit because people on the Seattle subreddit have been also going back and forth. I, of course, picked the brains of the other reporters at the Seattle Times.
That's a good place to do it.
Yes.
We have a lot of coffee geeks in our newsroom.
Journalists know coffee. They really do. And there are definitely places that still do the $4, $5 cup. Some of my findings have been like Herkimer coffee. They have several locations around town, so you can go to Belltown, U District, Greenwood, and stop by. Another coffee spot that came up was Espresso Vivace, and there are two locations, one in South Lake Union and one on Capitol Hill.
And I know you talked to a smaller shop that is faring pretty well. What's happening for them?
So one of the sources that I spoke with, his name is Mehmet, and he's the owner of the Seattle Grind. It's a kind of a coffee shop, a small kiosk where it's really, for the most part, a one-man show. He maybe has a seasonal employee during the winter and two during the summer. But he immigrated here from Turkey, has been running this business, and it is actually still one of the spots where you can go and kind of get an old school cup of coffee at old school prices. Most of their options are between like $4 and $5. So that's right below the Space Needle. Apparently, it is a hidden gem for a lot of people who work at the Seattle Center or the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So I hope I'm not exposing their favorite spot, but according to them, this is a great place to go and get, a reasonable cup of joe.
Well, thank goodness this is being recorded. Because, Megan, before this airs, I'm going to hit this place before lines get long.
Exactly.
So thank you for the scoop.
I would love to hear some of your hacks when it comes to finding a reasonable cup of coffee.
See, now I'm going to sound really bougie. What I do, Megan, it's a great deal for me, great investment. I buy a $1,000 espresso machine. And it is. Before listeners freak out, I drink 3 espressos. That would add up to like over $30 after a 20% tip. So it's actually saving me money because I drink so much espresso. Mm-hmm. But I don't think you have to spend that much money, not in Seattle, because there's so many used machines, for one thing. And two, a lot of my friends, they just buy a little French press and they buy a coffee grinder and you get it at Goodwill. It's just like Crock-Pot. They're just littered with them on the shelves and you just buy your whole beans and just grind it. Grinding your own beans make a huge difference in quality. And you know what? I hate to say it, Megan, but McDonald's, all my friends on the East Coast, that's what all the cool kids are doing. They say it's so much cheaper and so much better than Starbucks. You don't see it here. It's a culture thing. People do not walk around with McDonald's coffee in the morning. But when I go back to DMV, they call it the District, Maryland, Virginia area, they all have McDonald's coffee in the morning, the cup, that iconic M.
Yeah, in the South, the big thing is the gas station coffee.
Yeah.
Because I was born in Seattle, but spent most of my childhood down in New Orleans. And that is a huge thing there, is getting your coffee from a gas station. So I would be curious if that still resonates up here. Should I go try some gas station coffee on my way back to the newsroom?
I will pass. I always had bad experience, like these muddy, really dark and dank. And
I think it's hit or miss.
If you go around town, you go to like these delis or mom and pop bodega style shops, you can get coffee for like $2-3. I park in front of a place called Stella, and they had a 20-ounce coffee for about $2. If you want Americano, it's like $3. If you want a 20-ounce latte, that's a lot of latte. That's like $4. So yeah, you still can get it. It's a very expensive coffee city, but you can still find affordable coffee or find your way around.
Some of my sources to try and save money while still treating themselves to that Seattle cup of coffee. One of them, for instance, she'll bring tiny sugar-free syrups in her purse because she feels that the cost benefit of buying her coffee out and not paying the extra for syrup, it makes sense for her. So I think everybody has these little tips and tricks right now to still be able to treat themselves while also maybe saving a buck?
We need to go out for coffee.
Yes.
Now, have you been to a place called Push and Pull?
I have not.
Can I tell you? So this, I think, is the best espresso in the city.
Ooh.
It's in the Central District. It's around 23rd and Union Street. And my friend went on a blind date or an online date there, and he didn't rave about her, but he raved about the coffee there. And I was scared because I was afraid it was going to be so good because it's so close to my house.
Sure.
And I finally had it, Megan. It is freaking the best coffee. And I don't own stocks in this company. I'm not an investor, just as an observer. Megan, this coffee is so good. It is the best espresso out there in Seattle now. By far. No one comes even close. And it's so good, Megan, that I'm scared to jog by there because that's part of my running route because I'm afraid I'm going to get hooked in this coffee. But you know what, Megan? I'm going to buy you a cup since you never had it.
I would love that.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
You're about 4 desks over.
Absolutely.
So I will definitely bring you one next time to work. How about that?
Cubicle neighbor bonding. I appreciate that so much, Tan.
Right. Megan, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today. We have a list of some places to get good or cheap coffee in the description of this episode. Thanks for listening to Seattle Eats. The show is a production of the Seattle Times and KUOW for the NPR network. You can support Seattle Eats by investing in the local newsrooms and the specialized beats that make this sort of storytelling possible. Please consider joining and subscribing at KUOW.org/eats and SeattleTimes.com. Seattle Eats is produced by Brandy Fullwood and edited by Jim Gates and Trevor Lensmeyer. I'm Tan Vinh. See you next week.